command line and this interface and the shell. This is the learning objectives for this part. So questions you may have is, what is the command line interface or the CLI? What's a shell? Why or when do I want to use it? And here you will learn about the shell and the command line interface and why and when you should use it instead of the graphical user interface. And the graphical user interface are called GUI, or usually for short. So this shows how a shell might look here. And this is for when you are logged in to Tetralit. And I have two examples here where I am logged into Tetralit and where I'm on my own computer. And I should probably also download these files here. And I suspect I have a directory with this name. No, I actually wiped it. Okay, good. Just to have it on both systems. So now it's there. And this also serves to show you that it differs how the prompt develops. I mean, in some systems, it just keeps showing this prompt itself, or the prompt could contain, for instance, the most recent directory, the one just above it, or it could give you the whole path to the directory. It's simply how it's set up. And as I said, the command line is an interface for typing commands directly to a computer's operating system. It is a user interface. You navigate it only with the keyboard by typing commands at a prompt, instead of clicking with a mouse or similar, which is what you might do on a GUI, or graphical user interface. The command line interface is available to all operating systems. That includes Windows, Linux, and Mac OS, but it's usually associated with Linux or Unix. And here is a bit more about the prompt. In the bash, it is shown as a $sign. In C shell and TC shell, it's shown as this larger than. There are also shells that uses a percentage or the hashtag. And in any case, the prompt means the shell is waiting for input from you. In general, you can do many more things on the command line interface than you can in the GUI. And it's also practical and normally faster when you log in with a terminal to a remote system, for instance. Like, for instance, Tetralit or some other of the Swedish SPC systems. As I mentioned in the intro, the shell is a special user program. It's an interface between the keyboard and the operating system. It takes command input from the user and from the keyboard and sends it to the operating system, which then performs the actions requested. OS is short for operating system all through this, but I'm sure this is an abbreviation you have seen before. And this is just to repeat. We are looking at the Linux Unix shell, and it's a command line interface, command line interpreter, as well as a scripting language. And we are not going to talk a lot about writing scripts, except that I will show a few small examples, and it's very useful for automating tasks. For instance, you might want to iterate over many files, and that is done very easily in the shell. And this we already mentioned. it can look differently, the prompt. And this here is just a bash prompt, but at Tetralit, they only show the most recent directory, whereas on my home computer and also on Kebnekaise and some of the others, they will show the full path. And I believe there are also some of the systems where they have chosen to not show any part of the path. There are advantages to both. I mean, it's good to easily see where you are, as you do here. But it's also, if they show the full path, it might get very long. So you end up only having a small space before you start typing on next line and things like this. So advantages and disadvantages. So you may hear words such as shell, terminal, console, and command line interface. What's the differences? Are they the same? Well, a terminal is a text input-output environment. A console is a physical terminal, though it's often used interchangeable. A shell is a command line interpreter. There's a slightly longer answer if you feel like reading it here. But, the words are used interchangeable, but they have slightly different meanings. So go ahead and try it out. You should already have a terminal open where you fetched the exercises. And otherwise, open it and then let's try and code along. And I will describe all of these commands more under navigating the file system. But let's just try and see what happens if you say ls. Then you see the directories. You could try touch, which is a way to create a file. And my file in this case is just a placeholder. I could have called it anything. I just chose to use the placeholder. You can create a directory. Again, my dear is just a placeholder, but I'm not feeling inventive. So I will do ls, and now you can see these file and directory now exist. So what happens if you mistype a command, or if the program or script is not available? Well, you get an error message, and let's try and do that. What if I was going to write ls and I instead wrote ks? Then it tells me the command is not found. What then if I want to if I actually use the correct command, but I'm using it on a file which I cannot read? If it's not accessible, maybe it's not there, or maybe I don't have permissions. So let's try to that. It doesn't matter what you call it. But then you get an error message that says cannot access. No such file or directory. It does not mean it's not there. It means that either it's not there or you don't have permissions to read it. So, key points. A shell is a special user program. It's an interface between the keyboard and the operating system. It takes input from the user and it sends it to the OS, which then performs the actions requested. We'll use bash in this course. You can run programs from the shell by entering commands at the command line prompt. There are many advantages to using the shell. They are particularly the ability to automate repetitive tasks, combine smaller tasks to a script, as well as the speed of executing commands compared with GUIs, which are more resource heavy. So that makes it much faster, particularly remotely, where you may have a limited bandwidth or something. A difficulty with the shell can be finding out which commands exist and also how to run them.